Tom Bower has just unearthed something that's shaking the royal world to its core. A mystery so strange it's making even the palace nervous. He isn't talking about rumors, headlines, or social media theories. He's talking about official records, paper trails, documents that don't lie. And those records tell a story that doesn't match the one Meghan Markle built for the world to see. According to Bower, the version of Meghan we were introduced to, the young, ambitious Hollywood actress who became Duchess of Sussex, might not be the woman those records describe. Somewhere between Los Angeles and London, between studio sets and royal palaces, the math stopped making sense. The years don't add up. And it's not just journalists noticing. Her own father, Thomas Markle, has started speaking out, and what he's saying makes the story even stranger. He's not a gossip columnist or a critic. He's a father who remembers birthdays, graduations, and milestones the way only a parent can. And now he's saying the timeline doesn't match, that the daughter he raised might be several years older than the woman the palace introduced to the world. It sounds impossible, right? But the evidence, from magazines, interviews, and even medical records, tells a different story. If Tom Bower and Thomas Markle are right, then Meghan Markle might not be 44 years old at all. She could be closer to 50, and that one difference, just a few quiet years, rewrites everything. It changes how old she was when she left Hollywood, how old she really was when she met Prince Harry. It changes the entire fairy tale that the world fell for, and turns it into something colder, sharper, and far more calculated. Because if the timeline isn't true, then what else isn't? Was her story as self-made and spontaneous as she claimed? Or was every milestone, every moment, part of something carefully edited for effect? Tom Bower isn't just questioning dates, he's questioning identity. He's asking how someone can climb into the world's most exclusive family with a story that doesn't fit on paper. And the answer he's found, about age, birth records, and royal image control, might be one of the biggest untold scandals in modern royal history. Because if Meghan's age, education, and even motherhood timeline don't line up with the records, then this isn't just about a duchess, it's about a rewrite of reality. One so perfect, it fooled almost everyone. When Thomas Markle talks about his daughter, there's no venom in his voice. There's something heavier, like a man who's been carrying a secret too long and finally decides to let it slip. He doesn't gossip, he recounts. Dates, places, moments. The smell of the stage lights when she performed her first school play. The afternoon she brought home a trophy from her drama club. The exact year she graduated. He remembers it all because for a parent, those memories don't fade. They timestamp your life. So imagine how strange it must have felt for him, watching the world celebrate a story that didn't line up with his own. When Meghan's rise to fame began, Thomas started noticing little cracks. A date changed here, a year adjusted there. Suddenly, the daughter he'd seen grow up in the late 80s was being described as a child of the early 80s. Reporters quoted her as being younger than he remembered. Even her public biographies began to list milestones that didn't match the timeline of his own family photos. He didn't go public right away. He tried to brush it off, to convince himself maybe he'd misremembered. But the inconsistencies kept stacking up, and when the palace began promoting her as a mid-30s actress entering royal life, Thomas knew that didn't add up. He had photos of her on sets and school events, already an adult when she was supposedly a teenager. And when he finally spoke out, the tone was almost judicial. He didn't rant. He stated, slowly, clearly, like someone reciting sworn testimony. He said that Meghan's official birth year, 1981, might not be correct, that somewhere along the way, her real age had been adjusted. Those words hit differently, because this wasn't a random critic or anonymous insider. This was her father, the man who held her as a newborn, who paid for her private schooling, who still keeps every photo album from her childhood. And for Tom Bower, that was the first real clue that something bigger was buried in Meghan's timeline. When a parent says the numbers don't match, it's not a theory anymore, it's evidence. Royal watchers didn't know what to do with that. Some dismissed it as bitterness from an estranged parent, but others, especially journalists who'd covered Meghan long before she met Harry, started digging through archives, pulling old magazines, local yearbooks, and casting records. What they found made the story even murkier. Dates shifted, ages blurred. The same roles she claimed to have landed at 23 were credited to actresses closer to 30. Early fansite bios listed her as born in 1976. Even agencies that once represented her quietly removed older records after her engagement to Harry. Thomas's quiet comments had cracked the facade, and once that first fracture appeared, people started peering through it, looking for what else might have been rewritten. Because if her age could change without anyone noticing, what else in her story had been polished into something new? That's the question that drove Tom Bower to start following the paper trail. Not the gossip, not the interviews, but the documents, to see whether a duchess's life had been edited line by line. It all comes down to one small printed line, hidden in the March 1997 issue of 17 magazine, a name buried on page 90, Meghan Markle, age 21. It sounds trivial until you do the math. If Meghan was born in 1981, she would have been just 15 in 1997, not 21. That's a 6-year difference. Not a typo, not a guess. A national magazine entry, printed, sold, and archived decades before Meghan ever met Prince Harry. You can still flip to that page today. The number's right there in black and white. If that record is accurate, then the version of Meghan's life we've been told, the fresh-faced actress in her 20s just breaking into Hollywood, collapses. It would mean she was closer to 30 when she began her acting career, rewriting her entire narrative in an industry obsessed with youth. Tom Bower calls this the most curious document in her paper trail, because it doesn't just question her age, it questions the entire identity the palace sold to the world, and that's where the mystery deepens. If this printed record is right, then Meghan Markle might be 6 years older than the biography every outlet repeats. Which raises the question, who changed the number, and why? Line the two timelines side by side, and the difference is shocking. Version 1. The official record, Meghan Markle, born August 4th, 1981. That makes her 44 years old today. This version is in royal documents, biographies, and public records. Version 2, the printed record, Meghan Markle, 21 years old in 1997. That places her birth year around 1975 or 1976, which would make her nearly 50 in 2025. That's not a small detail. That's an entire chapter of life erased. It changes her age when she graduated, when she started acting, and when she married into the royal family. If this second timeline is true, she wasn't a rising 30-something stepping into royal life. She was a woman in her 40s navigating one of the most scrutinized institutions on earth, and that difference matters. Because age isn't just a number in Hollywood or royalty. It's power, it's perception, it's image. Tom Bower suggests this isn't coincidence. He describes it as a strategic rewrite, one designed to preserve the image of a modern, glamorous duchess, not an older, seasoned actress. But if this rewriting really happened, it couldn't stop with age. Because when you edit one part of the record, you have to edit everything connected to it. And that's where Bower's investigation takes a darker turn, into the one area no royal PR team can fully control, childbirth. According to a hospital insider at London's Portland Hospital, the same one where Meghan delivered Archie, the official story told by Harry in his book Spare doesn't match how things actually work inside those walls. In Spare, Harry describes a serene scene. 2 epidurals, soft lights, candles, and a calm 2-hour recovery before heading home to Frogmore Cottage. It sounded like a fairy tale birth. Perfect, polished, cinematic, but doctors who read that account called it impossible. Epidurals don't come in pairs. You don't get 2 of them. They're continuous drips, not double doses. And no new mother walks out 2 hours after giving birth, especially not one over 35 flagged as high risk. The drive from Portland Hospital to Frogmore Cottage alone can take over an hour. That means everything. Labor, delivery, recovery, observation, discharge would have had to happen in under 60 minutes. The math doesn't work, neither does the medicine. If Meghan truly had preeclampsia, a dangerous pregnancy complication, she wouldn't have been discharged at all. Not in hours, not even the same day. So if the story was that polished, maybe it was never meant to be believable. Maybe it was meant to be beautiful. For Tom Bower, this wasn't about medicine, it was about messaging. He believes Meghan's birth story was written like a film. Serene, strong, and cinematic, because the truth didn't fit the image. Private hospital staff know the difference between patient care and PR choreography. According to The Insider, Portland doesn't allow wellness-style births for high-risk patients. No candles, no water tubs, no birthing balls. That kind of setup isn't just unlikely, it's forbidden. And yet that's the image the world was given. To royal watchers, it was perfection. To medical professionals, it was a fairy tale. And once again, the story didn't just smooth the details, it replaced them. Harry described everything as flawless, as if the couple floated through the process untouched by pain or risk. But in the real world, high-risk births are grueling, chaotic, and unpredictable. That's what makes this detail so chilling. Because the more perfect the story sounds, the more it feels written. And the more it feels written, the more it resembles every other part of Meghan's myth. Curated, controlled, and performed. Once you start spotting the pattern, you can't unsee it. Every contradiction, from the age mystery to the birth story, follows the same formula. A public version designed to look effortless, beautiful, and modern, and a private version that doesn't quite hold up under scrutiny. Tom Bower calls it the Palace of Perception, a kingdom built on image management rather than truth. He suggests that somewhere along the way, Meghan stopped living her story and started editing it, not because she wanted to deceive, but because perfection sells better than reality. From a media standpoint, it worked brilliantly. A youthful duchess, a miraculous birth, a perfect family of 4, all wrapped in royal elegance and Hollywood glow. But once those cracks started to show, once reporters and hospital staff began whispering about inconsistencies, the illusion started to unravel, and every edit that once protected her image began to work against her. The truth is, no one survives perfection forever. In Hollywood, you can retouch a headshot. In royalty, you can't retouch a timeline. Once the records came out, the magazine, the inconsistencies, the hospital insider, the public started to question everything. Not just her story, but her sincerity. Because when every chapter of your life reads like a press release, people stop believing the person behind it. For Meghan, it's become a double-edged sword. Her brilliance in crafting her own narrative gave her fame, influence, and control. But it also means when something doesn't line up, like an age discrepancy or an impossible birth story, people don't give her the benefit of the doubt. Bauer's revelations don't just question the details. They question the entire foundation of her image. And that's why, even years later, this story keeps resurfacing. Because it isn't about numbers or medical records anymore. It's about credibility. In the end, Tom Bauer says the real story isn't about deception, it's about survival. He calls it a kingdom of edits, a place where every line of the fairy tale was adjusted just enough to shine. Maybe Meghan didn't rewrite her life maliciously. Maybe she simply understood that in the worlds of Hollywood and royalty, truth doesn't sell. Perfection does. But perfection always comes with a price, because when the story cracks, even a little, the world rushes in to see what's real underneath. And what Bauer's discoveries have shown is that behind every polished royal image lies something far more human and far more complicated than the fairy tale ever allowed. So maybe this was never a lie. Maybe it was a performance that went too far, a timeline that started as ambition and turned into myth. Whether Meghan is 44 or closer to 50, whether her birth story was serene or scripted, one thing is certain: the truth always finds its way out. And now, as Tom Bauer's research continues to surface, it's clear that the Duchess's biggest challenge isn't public opinion, it's the record itself. Because once you've built a life on perfect lines, even one wrong number can bring the whole story crashing down.